This is the Unstuck Movement, True Testimonies of Breakthrough. I am your host, Rob Z. Today on the platform, we have the incredible Erin Edgar with us on the podcast. She is the caring attorney. And today we're going to be talking resilience, purpose, entrepreneurship, estate planning. And Erin, when we jump into these episodes, I like a powerful question right up front. And during 2020, during the pandemic, you had left the not-for-profit organization Legal Aid to found your own law practice in the craziest time in recent memory. And also, you are blind along with this. So you decided to start something incredibly difficult during the pandemic. How did blindness shape that bold career pivot, and how did it pay off for you?
Well, Rob, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show today. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. And I love this question because it has so much to do with who I am as a person and how it gets my blindness right there out in front, because my blindness is a big part of my life, obviously, and centers around why I do what I do. And why I serve the clientele that I serve. Mm-hmm. So to answer that question, we need to go back a little bit. I was employed by Legal Aid of North Carolina as an attorney on a contract basis to help people who could not afford attorneys. It was a very rewarding job. I felt that I was serving my state in the way that I could, and my local community, that to help take care of problems that people were having, simply surviving. And as I worked there, I began to realize that my legal interests were actually a little bit different than what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. And I'm a big fan of do what you love. And if you're not doing what you love, something is wrong. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of us do not have the choice of doing what we love. And I wanted to choose that and was fortunate to be able to have that space to do it. I was also suffering from what psychologists today call compassion fatigue. It's a fancy term for, wow, a lot of my clients were in really hard times. And being very empathetic, I take on a lot of people's suffering. And even though we were on a telephone relationship basis, I was taking on and carrying a lot of that suffering. So while I was at Legal Aid, I went and tried to apply for some other, law firms. And I really didn't get as far as the application process. It was more like, hi, we're looking for attorneys that do family law, or I think one of them was estate planning even. And those were areas of interest. And I said, oh, great. Let's talk more. I'll send you my resume. And they were like, well, we know you and you're blind. So what kind of accommodations would you need? And I said what kind of accommodations I needed. And it was basically like, there were no more questions. There was no more curiosity. There was nothing, because I believe that people were just too afraid, too scared. A lot of them were small firms and they felt they couldn't afford it. I guess, I don't know. Because they didn't really, come back to me. Right. And I didn't have the resourcefulness at the time to ask. And so as a very independent person, my second grade teacher would tell my parents she is a very independent worker. It was on my report card. As a very independent person, I said, the heck with this, I'm starting my own firm. So in 2017, I did that. I actually went out and legally formed my law practice. And there's a discrepancy here, which I will address, which is that I continued to work for Legal Aid. I was comfortable there. And then I had a family death in 2019, actually. And we were devastated. It was my last living grandparent. She had 6 months of a very severe dementia, and then her death. And her estate plan was 20 years out of date. 20 years. Now, this means that everyone that she had on her plan to support her when she was either sick or dying was already dead.
Oh, geez.
And just boiling it down to the bare bones fact there, that's what it meant. And so my family was thrown into a lot of turmoil to try and get her kind of on a good day when she was competent to make new choices. And they were able to do that for her life but not for her death. And so when she died, the will and trust that she had may or may not have reflected her intentions. We don't know. And so my family was in argument over what to do. It could have easily gone to court. It did not. I was unable to help because it was a different state. I was not licensed there. And people were calling me saying, "What should we do? What should we do?" I'm like, "Well, I can kind of tell you, but I don't really know because I can't advise you."
Hmm.
And I realized that it was time. It was time for me to bite the bullet, to really do what I wanted to do, to stop just talking about it and leave. And the pandemic was the jumping off point for a lot of people. We all had sort of like a value assessment, revaluation of our life. And me as an attorney working in a position that was not giving me the satisfaction that I wanted and the fulfillment that I wanted, I decided that this was the time, and I was blessed to have a husband who still had a job that could support us while I was becoming acclimated. And my blindness was just, it was my independence. I am developing resourcefulness and resilience, and I take that everywhere that I go. And if people are not open to discussions with me about how we can work together, I will go off and do my own thing.
Oh.
So yeah, that is the long answer to your question.
Well, it's interesting with the pandemic that, it was commonly seen across the board as a really bad thing, but so many people grew through it. And I guess, it either could have torn you down or built you up. And I think for me, it did both. It tore me down for a while, and then it built me up, like you kind of rise out of the ashes. And so I love to see the positives in things that seem to be very negative, right? And I refer to that too for your blindness, also something that seems to be a negative. It sounds like has turned into something that is a powerful strength. You found a lot of strength out of that.
It is, and I believe that it has contributed uniquely to my own particular brand of my own legal style, like what makes me unique as a lawyer. I am, as I said, I'm empathetic to people's struggles, partially because I've had my own share. Obviously, I don't have the same struggles as everyone else, but as a blind person, I have had struggles living and being professional and being taken seriously in a sighted world. There is now with blindness, it is not as great as some disabling conditions, but there is kind of with deafness and blindness in particular, there's this undercurrent of, well, that person must be sort of dumb also. I mean, unintelligent, unable to function. There's an undercurrent of that in our society that has not left us despite 150, 200 years of educating both of those populations. And so it is there, and I have struggled with that. And there is also a gap in employment in the blindness community. People tend to be employed in, not everyone, but many people are unemployed. It's about a 65, 70% unemployment rate in that community. And the people who are employed, many of them are employed in sort of lower paying type jobs that don't utilize their full potential. And that's not judgment. It is just the way it is. And so I was definitely someone who did not want that. I was fortunate to have parents who did not want that for me, who made sure I had the best education possible, because for them, that was the key.
Yeah.
And since I fortunately had that kind of questing mind, for me, it was perfect. And so having had those struggles, I can empathize with the fact that other people also struggle with their own stuff, right? Call it what you want. They struggle with their own stuff. And I am here not to judge them about it. I mean, I do my own share of judging, because we all do, right? But in my professional capacity, I am not here to judge them about it. I am here to guide them and understand that struggle is struggle, no matter how hard, how you sugarcoat it or define it. And no matter what it looks like for you, it's your own struggle. And I'm here to assist people in whatever way I can to work through the struggles that I am equipped to assist them with and to serve them in doing that.
Yeah, I always refer to it as the mess, right?
Hmm.
And the mess, the only reason I can see for having a mess in your life is to make it a message. If you don't
Oh,
take the
nice.
mess and turn it around and use it as a message to help other people, then what's the point of having the mess in the first place, right?
Hmm.
So let's take the things that were really difficult for us. And like you said, everybody has a mess. It looks different for everyone, but everybody has a mess. And if you say somebody, what is the mess in your life, they can point to something as long as
Right.
they're being open about it, right? They can point to something.
Hmm.
So before we go any further, I just want to welcome everybody here. The Unstuck Movement, this platform was created because I was in a mess, just
Hmm.
like you've been in the mess and everybody else. And we'll probably find ourselves in messes as life goes on. There's always another opportunity for breakthrough in life. So this podcast, I want real life examples from real life breakthrough to prove to anybody who's watching or listening that breakthrough is possible for you also. We're sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. And also, if you're somebody who is an expert at what you do, but you want to be the go-to authority in your field, you want to launch a platform that makes incredible connections for you in your life personally and professionally, and also creates impact in people's lives, I'd love to help you start your own podcast. Or if you have one, I'd love to help you streamline it and monetize it. We can do that with the Pro Podcaster Academy. Check out RobZWentz.com. Erin Edgar, the caring attorney, with us today, founded her law practice in 2020. She empowers families through estate planning. And I want to go to when we do these episodes, I ask you to fill out some information beforehand, and I love knowing quotes that people live by. You went with Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, one of the greatest books ever written, in my opinion.
Oh,
And you wrote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. How does that quote apply directly to your journey?
oh, I love that. It makes me cry every time I either read it or hear someone else read it because
Mm,
it is that powerful for me.
yeah.
So, I had a mess, and I also had a very powerful experience. And I'll use both of them to illustrate the comparison, because for me, it's all about two things. We can either react to our mess and make it worse because we react out of fear, or we can respond to our mess using your mess metaphor, or we can respond to our mess and make and turn it into something truly fantastic for
Mhm.
ourselves and for the people that we wish to serve in our lives, whoever those people may be. It could be our family, it could be our work coworkers, it could be anybody. And so I had a mess in, let's just say, a little bit after law school. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Um, and I got a notification. It started a little bit before this, but we'll use this as the initial stimulus. A qualification, a notification that I didn't pass the bar exam for the first time, and I chose to just shut down. I was like, well, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with my life. I'll just keep in this rut and keep taking it. And I did. I took it a couple more times and I didn't pass. I was just sort of reacting. I was letting my life happen to me. I was, really basically unemployed for a long time. Um, and then eventually I got out of that mess. But it took me a long time because I was basically letting life be lived, letting it just live me
Mhm.
and not really being proactive and thinking and planning and responding. And so the difference between reacting for me and responding is either inaction, which is itself a reaction. We just sort of hunker down and live life day by day without a plan. Or we can seek guidance and plan something and respond in a more proactive, organized way, which is what happened to me when I decided to leave legal aid. Now, some people would say I didn't really plan enough, which is probably true. Like, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have clients that I was bringing with me. I didn't have really a lot of financial security and stability. However, I did really plan in my mind and visualize what I wanted out of this transition. And it was a mess for a while. I'm not going to lie, that those first few years were rough. And even now, I'm hitting some rough patches, and yet I do know that it is going to be something truly fantastic, because I actually planned and continue to plan about how I want my business to grow and evolve, and also how I want to serve the people in my life whom I love.
That's really, those are the cornerstones, the vision and service. So that's two cornerstones that I always use, because the vision is everything. If you don't have a vision, then every problem is just a problem. When you have a vision, problems become opportunities, right? Because
Absolutely.
you need those problems to move forward, and you have to be of service. If you're serving others, and like you being, the caring attorney, you care. That means you're serving people at a high level. And those two things so when you say you still hit rough patches, that's a good thing. It's like, okay, good. It means you're learning and you're growing, but your target, your vision is in the right place of, like, why you're doing what you're doing, and you have that purpose. And you've already given a lot of value here. And I look for themes when we talk in episodes, right? So themes that have come up here so far that I've heard multiple times in other episodes, you can't react out of fear, right? We often react, and that's the fear, instead of responding out of courage, having that boldness in the face of fear. So reaction versus responding is so important to understand the difference, and to put that pause in, and living life. Don't let it live you, right? And that's where that leadership comes from in our life. And we need a vision to be a great leader. So I really value both of those things.
Oh, can I tell you a story that just
please.
That live life, don't let it live you?
Yeah.
I was in a training a while ago now, and it was a virtual training. And we sat there in the training, and sat there in the beginning. It did not start out the way the usual trainings start. It started with us sitting there, and the trainer just sort of came in and sat down, and we're all sitting there. And they let us sit there for like 20 minutes before the trainer popped up and said, hi, how are you all doing today? This is, I think her question was something like, what does this tell you that we've all sat here for 20 minutes? And the answer that they were looking for was, we're all just letting life happen to us. We're letting someone else take the wheel and live our life. And so it was such a profound experience. And I've had this happen some other time since then. But the first time that ever happened to me, I was like, oh, that was really profound. They wanted us to make a request, like, what is happening? But none of us did that.
I love that. And that's a great way too. If you're late for something, you can just use that as an excuse. Hey, I was late. So
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm
a half an hour late to this presentation, and then you can just flip it on people.
Right. And it's amazing how many people, I'm really big about being on time.
Yeah.
Because I believe that it shows, integrity, and especially for a client meeting, it shows that you really want to serve someone. And it's amazing how many times I will call people and I will say, I am so sorry, I'm 2 minutes late. I apologize. You matter. You're important to me. And they're like, why are you apologizing? Like, being late now just seems to be the thing to do. And my little obsessive side does not like that at all.
Well, it really sets a precedent, and especially now we're in the virtual culture so much. If you're late to Zoom meetings, that just seems unnecessary, right? Like, we're literally sitting there at the computer. And in my mentor, he always says that if you're on time, you're late. He's always 10 minutes early to everything. And I try to live by that. I've done better. I'm not great at it, but I've definitely done better. So there is a lot of value in that. And I was making that joke a minute ago, but I think that really is a great test. If people are meeting and waiting for you, and you keep them waiting and see who asks a question, that would really stand out, especially like job interviews. Say an employer has 10 people for like a job interview day, and you show up 20 minutes late. The person who asked, where is this person at, that's one of the people you want to hire first, right?
Right.
Because they're
Absolutely.
bold enough to ask those questions. So that's really good. Real fast, we have to take a pause to pay the bills. Shout out the sponsor of the show. When we come back, though, I want to talk about, that grit and grace on a daily basis and how you balance those things out. Because attorneys, you're calling yourself the caring attorney because, being an attorney, I would imagine, is a tough business. And there's a lot of tough attorneys out there who don't have that grace. They may have the grit, but they don't have that balance. And I'm curious in your life, what it takes for you to find that balance, and how can you help other people find that balance of getting that grit to get things done, but also the grace for yourself and for others to make sure you're serving. We'll talk about that in 1 minute. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at RobZWentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Erin, absolutely loving this conversation. Really important to have these sorts of talks. And we talk about grit and grace and finding that balance. What does that mean for you in your daily walk in business?
In my daily walk in business, that the grit is serving my clients in the best way possible, even if it takes them into places that are uncomfortable. And even if I have to fess up and say, I made a mistake, or, that kind of grit. And I'll talk about both of them because they're a little bit different, of course. And in my practice, I help clients plan for their future, and it's not really a pleasant future to think about. I think the world will be a better place overall in the future. However, in the case of my clients, they're planning for their illness or death. And so they're very uncomfortable things to talk about. I try and liven it up by saying, what happens if you kick the bucket? What are you going to leave a mess? Or are you going to, leave it clean? Mm-hmm. And so those are really hard topics. And my job is to guide people through all of the decisions that they will need to make in order that they are loved and cared for in their illness or death, and their loved ones are provided for after they pass on. And so that is something that in a lot of cases requires persistence on my end, because people don't want to think about it. Mm-hmm. Most of the time when people engage with me as clients, they're already sort of halfway prepared because they know the drill, right? We've gone over it. I have a 30-minute complimentary consult for people, and you engage with that and then move on to my planning meeting. And by the time most people get to that planning meeting, they are prepared for that discussion. And yet I have the odd one or two that they don't want to go there. Mm-hmm. They don't want to even think about it. And so I need to have that sort of tough love mentality to move them into that discussion and kind of shepherd them through that, which also requires its own type of grace. Mm-hmm. And the grace comes in when I very gently, hopefully, sometimes I have to be a little more direct, help them, counsel them about what their options are. And a lot of times people have more options than they think. And gracefully sort of guide them towards the options that would probably would be in their best interest, because that's my job as well. I'm kind of a fiduciary, not with money, but with people's legal decisions. And people trust me to make the right decisions for them, the ones that are best for them, because that's why they're coming to me. They really don't know what they want their decisions to be and how to implement them. And then in the implementation of that, they also trust me. And that requires, the grace too, to be able to provide what they need. And there's also another way that this grit shows up for me, which is, we're not perfect. The legal field is, or can be, a minefield, even for attorneys. And a lot of times we have to tell people, I've looked into this and I think this is your best option. And then a few days later, we have a change of mind and heart, and we have to contact them again and say, you know what, I've done a little more research, or I missed a step here, something of that nature, and have the grit and courage and boldness to actually stand in what we believe would really be in their best interest. And there is also grace with that. And the grace is not coming off as, oh, poor me, I made a mistake, please forgive me. It's more like, I apologize, you matter, I want to do the best for you. And because I want to do the best for you, I'm going the extra mile. I'm not saying this to be cocky or arrogant, but I'm going the extra mile and admitting there are other options that you can consider. How about we discuss them? So I think grit and grace balance in a lot of different ways. Different attorneys would give you different answers because of, our jobs are different. And yet, since my practice is very client-centered, the grit revolves around, and grace also revolve around serving clients on an individual basis in these ways.
Yeah, and every big decision in life, if you approach it properly, it's a delicate balance of patience and perseverance, right? Because it's like patiently getting through things that are difficult and persevering when things get difficult and pushing forward and having difficult conversations, the ones that I'm sure you have to have on a daily basis. It requires you to juggle that grit and that grace, that patience and perseverance at all times, because you don't want to push somebody too fast that they can't handle it. So you got to have that patience, but you've got to keep nudging them forward. And I think you would probably agree with this in your entrepreneur journey, patience and perseverance is everything. Grit and grace is everything. Because you've got to give yourself a lot of grace, because so many things can go wrong. So many personal limiting beliefs can come up during an entrepreneur.
Oh my, yes.
Right. So you got to have that grace for yourself, but the grit to know, okay, I'm going to be easy on myself here, but I have to keep moving forward also at the same time. How do you silence that self-doubt in those tough times?
It's really, that is something that I need to do on a daily basis, sometimes hourly, sometimes quarter hourly. And, it is always there because it is trying to protect us, right? Our brains are designed to doubt ourselves because they want to keep us safe from an evolutionary standpoint. And yet also from an evolutionary standpoint, there is a bigger person inside of each one of us that knows that surviving isn't the way forward now. It's actually, how can we thrive and move on and grow despite our self-doubt? So as I've learned, it's not about eliminating it. I spent like so many years trying to do that. It doesn't work. So don't even bother. Yeah. We're a messy species. That's part of our mess. And it's also something that does help us grow when we use it, properly. So for me, it's not so much about silencing it. It's about noticing it and very lovingly sort of thanking it. Thank you. I appreciate you. You've been here to serve me before. I actually have these conversations with myself. Yeah. I'm not expecting a real person or even a mental person to answer, by the way. Thank you. I appreciate you. And I'm moving on. And one of the things that I do when the self-doubt becomes so pervasive that I feel like I can't handle it is that I focus out. So I don't know if you've ever heard that. When in doubt, focus out.
Hmm.
Um, I will do any number of things. I will tell a family member I love them somehow, or I will go to friends and say, "How are you doing today? How are you feeling? I know you were kind of low yesterday. How's it going today?" Or a very simple thing, I will go to my client list and look at who do I need to serve today? What things need to move forward today? Well, what is the one that seems the least stressful in the state of overwhelm? Can I, move forward with that one to help serve someone who is counting on me, and who needs my help? And so those are some of the things that I do to kind of tone it down and, be grateful for it and yet move on from it at the same time.
I love that. Yeah, you get caught up in wallowing in your own nonsense. Nothing good comes from it. Nothing,
Mhm.
and you have to do it enough times to learn. Oh, right, this doesn't work. I have
Mhm.
to do something different. So I love that, going into service mode whenever you're having that self doubt. I have another friend of mine, and he'll go do something he loves to do. Like
Mhm.
he loves to play pickleball or
Oh,
hang glide, right? So
yeah.
he'll go do these things that he loves to do when he feels overwhelmed or that he's doubting himself, because he'll go into like his giftings.
Mhm.
So if your gifting is serving, then
Yeah.
you go to your gifting and do that, and it builds you back up.
Exactly, and my other gift is singing, and so when
Hmm.
I am really doubtful, I was experiencing that yesterday, was really wallowing in it. I went to a 2.5-hour rehearsal, and that's for a lot of people, that maybe sounds like, "Oh my god, 2.5." It was the best 2.5 hours I've had in a long time.
I love
Because
that.
it was so joyful, so fun. Our concert was over. We were all happy, like, "Ooh, new music today." You know, and it was so helpful in eliminating that. So I think you have a very valid point, and I do it as well. Gifting, being in your gift is another way to tone that down.
Yeah. You mentioned back at the beginning of this episode about compassion fatigue, and I think a lot of people deal with this, whether they're in a profession that requires it or not. It requires them to be compassionate. You hear this a lot of people getting burned out. It's every mom, I think, has like
Mhm.
compassion fatigue issues, and like it's a good thing to care about people, to be compassionate for people, but it can burn you out. How do you manage that? Because you're dealing with these difficult topics in estate planning every day. And you said, especially before when you were working for your not-for-profit,
Mhm.
especially then you had major compassion fatigue. How did you
Yeah.
learn to handle that?
That's a really good question, and at that time, when I had that, I did I won't lie, I did seek therapy when I was at that job
Hmm.
because it was a really difficult place to be in. The therapy really didn't do all that much good. I will say I'm not really a therapy I've been in therapy a lot, but it's not mental therapy is not really, it doesn't work for me, but I, at that time, found the mindfulness meditation practices.
Mm.
And so I've been a big proponent of mindful meditation for at least 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, I think probably. I've been practicing regularly, and it's practice. I miss days at a time. And it is something that fills me up. It allows me to open to prayer, to seek that sort of stillness
Hmm.
and to reconnect with my most, what does Tara Brach call it? My most awake aspect of heart. She
Mm.
has such a beautiful turn of phrase. It's something like that. And it's basically reconnecting with the things that make me feel alive, the things that make me feel joyful, the
Hmm.
knowledge that I can create those feelings in myself when I need them. And at that time, it really helped me for a while, for at least 5 years in that job. Stay in that job for 5 years, probably longer than I would have. And then when the pandemic hit, it was more about serving others in a new way. It became imperative for me to really serve others in one of the ways that I was meant to. I feel like people have multiple ways they can serve
Mm.
people. Um, And, so I went from doing public benefits work, like, why did you get denied unemployment benefits last week, to let's help you plan for your illness and death, because I felt that I could make even more of an impact doing this kind of work.
Amazing. And boy, having those conversations every day, I would imagine my wife, she's also a soon-to-be counselor. She's in her internship right now.
Nice.
But I've noticed just in the past, she started her internship a number of months ago, and I've noticed that during it, she's much more able and willing to ask hard questions. So, and that's I love about coaching also, and with what you do also. I think being in the practice, I've had twice this week now to confront 2 clients with difficult questions that I didn't really want to ask them, because it's, you're putting somebody on the spot with something that other people are highlighting as an issue, and you're going to confront them with something they might not know about, or they might be ignoring, right? So you've got to like ask those bold questions, and that can be really scary to do, especially if you're somebody who really cares about people.
And it is scary, and I find myself really struggling in that area still today. I have a very hard time, I will admit that, when I have to confront a client with something that, not necessarily something they don't know, but something that, well, yeah, maybe something they don't know, or something that we need to take care of that will feel hard for them. And that for me is difficult in certain situations, especially if we haven't, worked together very long. If it's in the midst of a conversation, it's easier. But if I have to call them out on something, and I don't mean calling them out in terms of like they did something wrong, but I mean call them up and say, I found out this thing, you're not going to like it.
Yeah.
Right? You've got this deadline, you're not going to like it. Some of the things I do are court related if people die. And so they, I have to, and that's very still difficult for me sometimes, because I do care.
Yeah.
And part of the aspect of caring that feels like a detriment sometimes is that we take on other people's anger, sadness, suffering. We can't help it. It's part of who we are. It's part of what makes us unique. It's part of what makes us stand out. It's part of what makes us strong, but it can also make us feel really weak at times.
Right. And so that is what leadership is. That's what actual, talking about the true definition of love, like asking the tough questions, saying the thing that nobody else is willing to say, and saying it in a very tactful way that is helpful and not hurtful. But the practice of doing that over and over again is so beneficial, because that's what most people don't do. They'll avoid the elephant in the room forever. And you need to be somebody who addresses the elephant in the room, because nobody else, well, I shouldn't say nobody else is going to do it, but for most of the time, people aren't going to do it, and they're going to shy away from it. So that's our jobs. And I think it's important to ask, number one, yourself those questions. Exactly. But then also other people, because it can be even scarier to ask yourself the question.
Oh, yeah. It's much scarier. And it is often very hard for us as caring individuals to address that in our personal lives too. And so and the other aspect of that is what you just said, that once we do that, if we can address that from a space of being in connection and love with someone, it goes so much better than, you're not going to like it, I'm going to be defensive about it, I'm going to, if we come at it from a place of love and connection, which is sometimes harder for us, for anybody, than to come at it from a place of defensiveness and judgment. And I think that's where our society has a bit of a learning curve, honestly. But when we do that, the rewards that we receive are so much greater. And I'm talking about like the connection that we receive with other people who are ready and open to receive that love from us. It makes the relationship so much deeper.
It builds that self-confidence and that self-esteem in your own self when you do those things, because those questions are the ones that you'll repeat forever and never say. And that diminishes you and also your relationship. So really, really amazing stuff, Erin. I've loved this conversation. As we come to the end of this, I want to give people an opportunity to connect with you. So of course, your website is ErinEdgarLegal.com, but also you have a free virtual workshop coming up on April 23rd, Spring Forward, updating and strengthening your estate plan. They can sign up for that, learn about it, and sign up for it at ErinEdgarLegal.com/workshop. It's on the screen, but also in the show notes. What would you like to tell people about this event?
I would like to tell them that when they sign up for this workshop, learn about it, sign up for it, you are giving yourself a gift. You are gifting yourself the opportunity to have a conversation and learn about how you can best love and care for your family by not leaving a mess behind for them. You want them to be able to grieve for you and either focus on your illness and care for you, or grieve for you on your death without having legal hurdles to jump through. So I would encourage you to give yourself a gift and learn how you can best clean up this mess before it even happens.
Amazing. But that sounds something that we all need to do. And you're confronting me with something right now. It's like, wow, I've never even considered estate planning. This has never, not even been something that's in my realm of like, I got to do these things. So I love that we're having this conversation because it's challenging me. I would encourage everybody to go to ErinEdgarLegal.com/workshop. And also, as I mentioned before, if you are the expert at what you do, but you want to be the go-to authority in your space, maybe you have a platform, you want to streamline it, you want to monetize it, or you just want to launch that podcast, I would love to help you do this. You can go to the Pro Podcaster Academy, join our waitlist at RobZWentz.com. Erin, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Anything you want to leave the audience with before we sign off?
I would like to leave people with one quick thought. I would like to assure you that your overwhelm about where your life is going is very real. I do understand that and acknowledge it. And also want to encourage you not to be one of the 67% of Americans who dies without a will and leaves their family in pain and turmoil. To take that next step, sign up for my workshop, or even if you don't do that, find out what your first step is. Call a local attorney, do something to move yourself forward and create that gift for your family and clean up the mess before it even happens.
Yeah. Great advice. Thank you for being here. Another true testimony of breakthrough. Until next time, this has been the Unstuck